Futsal Ball Mastery, High School First-Time Players. In this video, one can hear coaching points while watching high school players working on a futsal environment. These are all higher-level soccer players, but new to training on a futsal court.
Okay, so this session basically is about a high school level training session with higher level players from different organizations, different clubs, different academies that have come to train for the first time with us, FTP Futsal, on a futsal environment. Now, some of these players may have done some futsal before, some may have not, but for the most part, all of them are fairly new to training on a futsal environment. As you're watching the technical activities that they're going through, they're pretty simple activities. Some of them are probably done on a soccer environment, but for the first time, this group is doing it on a futsal court. And while we're watching them, one of the things that I am noticing right off the bat is that there is hardly any urgency. In other words, they are very relaxed in doing these activities, probably because they are trying to get accustomed to the hardwood floor, to the hard surface, which that by itself makes it more difficult than doing the same activity on a grass or a turf soccer field where the ball moves slower. I mean, it's just the grass or the turf is a thicker, higher surface than the hard surface of a futsal court. They're using a soccer ball as opposed to a futsal ball here where it doesn't bounce as much. So their first, their first reaction is trying to go a little bit slower and maybe with not as much urgency than they would do in a soccer field, just try to get comfortable in this environment. In my opinion, without even saying anything to them, just having an evaluation, if you are at a high level, you should have that urgency in your movement, regardless if you're playing on turf, on grass, or hardwood floor, or any place else. So that's the number one observation as I'm watching these players. You'll notice that their body shape, and right now basically you have one player on one side of the four dots being quote unquote the server, and the other player actually performing the activities. But in a sense, really, even the server is working, and I want to keep talking through while the trainer is doing and giving them different directions. But once again, in their minds, and that's something I think that a lot of clubs and academies, they don't emphasize. I think it's more up to individual coaches to point out that it doesn't matter if you are a server or the player who's working. Really, an activity like this, it actually forces both players to constantly work. So as you'll see again when they pick up, the servers who happen to be closer to your screen, the players that quote unquote are doing the activity, the workers, are closer to the seats. You'll notice that they're kind of compliant. They're at ease. They think that it's not their time to work. So they're always flat-footed, number one. The ball gets to them, and their body shape is not behind the ball. Their mechanics are just not where it should be. All right, they're using, of course, their instep. We're not doing saw right now because, as I said, it's the first time that they're doing these activities. So just to get comfortable, they're using their instep to pass the ball back and forth. But notice the way they're putting their feet behind the ball. Toes, some of them the toes are pointing down as opposed to be pointing up. As the ball moves and the worker is going from side to side, adjusting, the server is just watching, and when the ball gets passed to them, that's when they actually readjust their body. So instead of being on their toes, be engaged and anticipating the passing coming back, from the player who's working. They just take that extra second, which now they're having to reach for the ball, trying to get their body behind the ball, and the next pass is not as a quality pass as it should be. So once again, I'm pointing out that these are players that are supposed to be at a higher level environment, playing soccer, but there is a lot of things in their mechanics that, my opinion, futsal brings it out. But again, if I was a soccer coach, I would also point them out. So the quality of the pass, the angle where they're getting their touch, their body shape, getting behind the ball, movement from within the square where the dots are, backpedaling, adjusting, controlling the ball, one touch, two touch, it makes a difference. As a former college coach and a full-time futsal coach, I strongly believe that fundamentals, foot skills are important. They should be practiced at all times. In fact, unfortunately, club teams don't have as much time doing in-season training to devote time into these individual skills. But in my opinion, players should find other ways to sharpen their touches on the ball. One of my favorite sayings, and I strongly believe that, is that every pass counts. So as you guys can see, like the first group here, the first the first group of girls, now their touches are like getting sloppy. The way they're touching the ball, the way they're getting behind the ball, they are leaning back. It's just not quality touches, especially since they're so close together. Every touch should be quality touch. If you notice, the server is always flat-footed. It's never on the balls of her feet, and she's waiting for the pass to come. So if it's not a perfect pass to her foot, now she has to adjust quickly, and her follow-up pass is not a quality touch, which, once again, it's a sequence. You have one bad touch, the second player takes a second or two to control the ball, rushes to give a pass back, so that becomes a sloppy pass, and the third pass becomes worse, and eventually probably losing control of the ball and giving away possession. So as the trainer is showing another activity, I will repeat very, very strongly my belief that every pass counts. Players should take pride in their ability to touch and pass the ball. You have to be able to control the ball. So number one is you got to get your body, ready to receive a pass. You got to be prepared. You cannot be flat-footed. You got to be on the balls of your feet, and you got to be ready to receive the ball. If the ball is not a perfect pass to you, by being on the balls of your feet, now you can quickly adjust your body and get your body behind the ball, control the ball, and then make a quality pass. So once again, now the trainer gave them a variation of the pass of touches on the ball. So they're doing some toe taps, they're moving around. But again, the essence is like look at the player who's basically the server. She's just sitting there watching the other player, perform the activity. If again you are in a soccer environment, any soccer coach, I will go over there and basically say, hey, look, you're not just watching the other player, perform the activity. You are part of this activity. You have to be engaged. You have to be on your toes. You have to watch and anticipate the pass. But as you can see, she's always flat-footed. She's always waiting for the ball before she reacts to it. And if you guys watch straight down the court, you pretty much watch the servers just being flat-footed, observing the other player do the activity. And you can say to me, well, coach, you need to remind them, you need to tell them that they are part of the activity. No, absolutely not. I disagree. The activity is as such: server, worker. One serves, the other one performs the necessary movement and body shapes, as well as foot touches to pass the ball back. The server should know at this age and at this level that they should be constantly engaged, they should be on the balls on their feet, they should be ready for a bad pass or adjust and have a quality pass to the worker. They should not have to be reminded. Again, Futsal does bring these things out because, as I said, the surface is a key component of the training. It's much more difficult to control the ball in a futsal environment than it is on turf or grass. Simple. Turf or grass, slow the ball down. It's a soccer ball, it's lighter, it slows it down. Where in a futsal court, any hard surface, it's faster, it's slicker, and a futsal ball, it's heavier, so it moves faster. Therefore, making it more difficult for the player to control the ball. Once you master these mechanics in a futsal environment, and you go to your soccer practice, your soccer environment, your soccer team training, you will notice a massive difference. And if you don't think quality coaches, academy coaches, high-level coaches recognize that, well, you might rethink it. Okay? So once again, like, look at this player. She has her arms by her waist and is watching the other player perform the activity. Unacceptable. Once again, we're not interfering to give directions to these players because, as I said, it's the first training session that this group is doing in a futsal environment with FTP, and we're evaluating. Okay? Actually, this training session was all these players coming in to basically get evaluated, to get picked up and be placed on an FTP futsal team. We're not going to sit there and tell them exactly how to behave or what to do because we want to observe them, which brings me to another key point. Most players do not put emphasis because they've never been taught that every single movement while they're in training, everything that they do in a training session will be evaluated and scrutinized by a high-level coach, not by a parent or volunteer coaches who haven't been taught these things. But high-level coaches, not only do they watch the player who's performing the activity, they're watching the other players, what they're doing. Again, I repeat, look, this player right in front of you, she's standing flat-footed. The player passed the ball, she fumbled, she lost her balance, she slid. Not to mention that overall, all these players, their balance is just not there. You cannot tell me that these things are not being taught in a soccer environment, or, as I keep saying, these are not beginning stage players. These are not intermediate players. They are from clubs and organizations that are quote-unquote higher level clubs. They're playing on higher level teams. But my true evaluation, and you may disagree with this, is that do they really belong at that level? Well, I don't know. Because, as I said, I'm looking at this evaluation, I'm looking at this, and by the way, at FTP, we actually record every training session pretty much. And we go back and we look. We look how they're performing their activities. We're looking how they're performing as an individual player. Like I said, and I don't mean to criticize these two players right in the front of the screen, but I have to, because once again, player puts her arms on the side. That's not a good look. She's not engaged. She's telling me that I'm just going through the motions here. Well, if you're coming here to impress us because you want to be on a team, not only are we going to evaluate your skills, we're going to evaluate what do you do. Look, a bad pass. Why? Because she's flat-footed.